taking the time to attend. Sorry, when the recording starts, it automatically turns off cameras and microphones, even for the person who's talking. So please feel free to turn on your camera if you like. And then I will give a short overview of the opportunity. Santana will give a short overview of what the city of Cranbrook is looking for. And then the primary purpose of this entire session is for all of you to be able to ask the questions that you have in order to submit proposals for this site. As a way of beginning, I'll just note that I'm here on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people in the city of Victoria. Wherever we're building in the province, we're always building on Indigenous land, so just wanted to begin with that acknowledgement. For those who I haven't met, my name is Lisa Helps. I'm the executive lead for BC Builds Project Origination. And I'll tell you a little bit about the BC Builds program as we walk through the property opportunity notice. I'll give a brief overview of BC Builds. Santana will give a brief overview of Cranbrook and what they're looking for, and then we're very keen to hear your questions. And if you're not comfortable asking questions into the meeting, feel free to start to populate your questions in the chat. So here's the property opportunity notice on the website. And if you haven't had a look at it, please have a very thorough read through. This is where everything you need to know about the site and the criteria for evaluating your proposals are laid out. I will note that the city of Cranbrook is looking for both a developer builder and a nonprofit owner operator. And one of the things that we found throughout previous submission processes is that those two parties may not know how to find each other. So you may be a developer builder wanting to put in a proposal, but you don't know a nonprofit owner operator and vice versa. For those of you here, and there are a lot of you, I would encourage you, if you feel comfortable, putting in the chat, hey, I'm a developer builder and I'm looking for a nonprofit owner operator to partner with, or vice versa. So use the chat to make those connections if you need them. If not, no worries. All right, so I'm not going to go through this in detail. You will read through it. Just before I get into the evaluation criteria, BC Builds is a market rental supply program. While it is a program within BC Housing, it is not an affordable housing program. It's not a subsidized housing program. It's not a low-income housing program. BC Builds is really targeted at rental supply and creating homes for middle-income households and families living in communities across the province, and in this case, in the city of Cranbrook. The property opportunity notice has all of the details in terms of site, some surrounding context, what the zoning is, what the city's expectations are. And again, I'm not going to go through all of those. Santana may touch on some of them, but what I really want to draw your attention to is how your proposals will be evaluated. So there's, starting on page 9, eligibility requirements. I'm not going to go through these in too much detail, but I do want to point out under eligible applicant, applicant must do these 5 things, or have these 5 things in place. So this is, even to have your proposals evaluated, you must be registered and in good standing with the BC Corporate Registry. If you could include your corporate incorporation number in your submission, that's helpful to our admin team. For the developer builder, you need to be a registered and licensed builder, have previous property development and property management experience, stay at or below BC Build's maximum grant requirement, and I'll touch on that in a moment, and stay at or below BC Build's target household incomes. So this is, when we get proposals in, we read through them and we say, are these 5 criteria met? If the answer is yes, then we go on to evaluate the proposal. So that's the first thing to note. And spelled out here is in more detail everything I just said. Okay, evaluation criteria. This proposal is scored out of 100 points. And you'll notice that fully 1/4 of the points go to the technical and financial viability and sustainability of the project. So is it financially viable? Is it financially sustainable without an ongoing operating subsidy? Is it technically feasible? Does it fit on the lot as has been laid out? Um, I want to just spend a bit of time here talking about these 25 points because it's 25 points. This is not kind of a low bid wins approach. In fact, this isn't a bidding process at all. It's a proposal call. So if you're thinking of putting in really low construction costs just to try and have a successful proposal, that will be flagged by our evaluation committee meeting or evaluation committee members as well. This is really way below market per square foot construction costs for Cranbrook. This seems very suspicious to us. So you're not going for the lowest cost, you're going for the most value, most realistic, benchmarked against local construction costs as much as possible, and that is worth 25%. The next three items, the amount of per unit grant required, the percentage of units below market, and the target household incomes, you'll notice that these are all worth 15 points. And so we really encourage you to balance your thinking and balance your pro formas and your project budgets equally here. So, getting 10 out of 15 on all three of these is better than getting 1 out of 15 and then 2 out of 15 and then 15 out of 15. So we've deliberately weighted these equally. We want to minimize the amount of per unit grant that we're putting into projects so that we can do more projects. We do want to hit a certain percentage of below market units, but again, this is not an affordability program. The baseline is 80% of units at market, 20% of units at 20% below market. We expect that all of your proposals will do that, so we're not giving any points for that. But if you can say, get to 25% of units at 20% below market or some additional number of below market units, that's where you start to get points there. Target household incomes, of course, we want you to be below the BC Builds thresholds, which are all spelled out here. But if you can deliver a bit more value and hit target household incomes that are a little bit lower, all the better. One tip on speed to market, this is worth 10 points. So BC Builds is a housing accelerator program. We want to get things built quickly, not in the typical 3 to 5 year timeline. What our evaluation committees have been seeing is proposals that say we plan to go fast, but don't really spell out how. So take the time to spell out for us how you're going to accelerate either the pre-development phase or the construction phase or both. These last 4 items are all worth 5. So unit mix, we're trying to incentivize 2 and 3 bedroom units, although you'll see that that's obviously not as high a priority as a financially viable proposal or one that doesn't max out our grants. Same with additional accessibility and sustainability benefits. And then because this project actually will end up in a nonprofit owning and operating a building on land that they currently don't own, so it's good benefit for a nonprofit to build your balance sheets and your portfolio. We will be awarding some points if you can make some kind of equity contribution, so some financial equity contribution from the nonprofit owner operator. So that's kind of an overview of the scoring. There is a lot of detail here about how to think through your proposal submissions or proposal development. One thing to point out, even though some of you or many of you may have relationships with CMHC, we do too, and we work very closely with them on projects. And we know that their amortization period is longer than ours, and we know that their interest rates are generally lower than ours. However, what we want to see in your proposals is use BC Build's model to develop your proposal. So 80% of units at market, 20% of units at 20% below market, a 35-year amortization, a 1.1 debt coverage ratio, and the interest rates that are on our website. And that really helps us to evaluate apples to apples rather than some people saying, yeah, I've got a great relationship with CMHC and we're going to have a 50-year amortization, and others not doing that, and it makes it very difficult to compare. So you're required to basically submit a BC Builds model. There's probably a lot more I could say, but it's all spelled out here, and I also want to leave as much time as possible for questions. So I'm going to stop and hand it over to Santana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lisa.
You might have muted yourself.
You might have dropped off.
I managed to I fully just clicked leave. I just left the meeting.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's a big red button, right? What
back.
are you supposed to do?
Right? I know. I often do that. I'll try to answer the call and the red button gets me instead of the purple one. Anyway, yeah, thanks everybody for all your registration. We're happy to see such big numbers. I am just hoping to present I have a quick couple slides. Okay. So for those, I see lots of local registrants on here, so that's really great to see. This property is downtown Cranbrook, 1501 First Street South, which is the same address right now as the Baker Gardens housing. That address will be changing, but because it's all one parcel, that's its own, its own step we have to overcome. For those not local to the Cranbrook area, lots of people don't know where we are. So this is where we are, the little corner here in Southeast BC. We're about, in Canadian terms, about a 4-hour drive to Calgary and about a 12-hour drive to Vancouver. We are the largest urban center in the region. We function as a hub community as residents from all over the region access Cranbrook for health, community, and social services. We are home to the regional hospital, the emergency shelter, the international airport, the primary campus for College of the Rockies, as well as the retail center for all of the Kootenays. So we do provide resources for kind of everybody. We do tend to have a lower cost of living compared to neighboring resort communities, such as Kimberley, Fernie, and Nelson. So yeah, Cranbrook's been a really great, ideal medium-sized city that welcomes people from everywhere. Some quick facts. In 2025, our estimate population is 2253. Our median age is 44. Family size is still around the 2.3. And interestingly, that hasn't changed over the last 3 census periods. So, our 2042 estimates, they vary if you look at Stats Canada or by BC estimates, but the province is estimating that we will almost double in the next 20 years. Our primary economic drivers here in Cranbrook are construction, natural resources, and manufacturing, and then under services, health and social, wholesale, retail, and education. Which is great because it's kind of what the BC Builds project is tailored towards. The quick housing snapshot. So we did a housing needs assessment update in 2023. Even over the last 5 years, 93% of new homes were built as single family development. You can see here only 7% were medium density, and previously Cranbrook considered a duplex to be medium density. So I would, that number would probably change now, and only 1 high density build in the last 5 years. We have in our housing needs update, they did break down the unit configuration that would be most ideal for Cranbrook. If you want access to this housing needs assessment, it is available on our website, and I'll give it to Lisa and Ali to post with the page. But the primary need is 1-bedroom units, and then followed by 2 bedrooms. The housing needs assessment also breaks down by income quintile, and what affordability measures we need for these bedroom types as well. So You'll be working with our Cranbrook team here. We've got a pretty tiny but mighty group. Our application turnaround times are the fastest in the province based on communities of our size. We're looking at variances. If it's a minor, it's about 2 weeks, majors to 3 based on legislative requirements. And then when you get into development permits, 4 to 6 weeks, building permits 3 to 5, again, depending on complexity. But once we receive a complete application and we've received everything that we need, the turnaround's pretty quick. So for this project, the general neighborhood area is just outside of, on the perimeter of downtown. It overlooks Baker Park and the RV campground, and it proposes really easy access to amenities, schools, transit, parks, and shopping. This year, unfortunately, I couldn't fit more on this page, but this slide here is kind of just to show you that this year is the site. And then you have access to Western Financial Place, Laurie Middle School. This is the regional hospital. This red dashed line is a 500-meter radius from the site. You'll see that it is 500 meters from the BC Transit Hub, the major grocery store, and right next to Baker Park. In 2023, the city endorsed the downtown revitalization plan. And within that plan, this area is designated downtown medium density. So the project here presents an opportunity to inject some vibrancy into the downtown and utilizing that underused space, and just inviting more people in. So existing on the parcel, as we've kind of mentioned before, there's an existing seniors housing development. It's composed of 6 4-unit townhomes. There's the 2 on the lower section, 4 higher up. The site is centered between them. This is managed by Canadian Mental Health Association. And then the zoning for this site is specific to the development. So if you had a chance to take a look at that zoning or even the details in the opportunity notice, they are the parking requirements, the setbacks, and all that have been built for this site. The density maximum has been put in there due to servicing capacity limitations. So at this point, that's 30 units is kind of the max that it could support. But the parking and site setbacks are still maybe possibly going to be vary depending on the proposals. The preferred development of the site would include that medium density mixed use apartment composed of ideally studio to 1 or 2 bedroom suites. At grade, we would like to see some kind of mixed use that invites people to kind of still use the park space, and that would be complementary. So something like either daycare, childcare facility, some form of community care use, or small scale commercial, cafe, small restaurant, something of that sort. The key points are that we want the ag-grade uses to still be complementary and accessory to the primary purpose of this is still housing. So those will come, the housing component will be priority. The medium density residential mixed use is of the downtown plan, hopes to kind of bring that strategic vision of vibrancy and viability and that mixing of creating that transition zone in between the residential area south of Baker and then into the downtown. There's no such thing as easy land anymore. So we have I outlined a few of the constraints on the site. We're in the process of having the land being surveyed in the process of the subdivision. We obviously can't initiate or finalize a leasehold subdivision until a lessee has been identified, but we are getting that going. So this on the slide here, the access in pink already exists. This road access here has never been legalized. So that's being done through this process here. And then there is a multitude of other services in here, the hydro, TELUS, and the city sanitary. I believe, are what exists in that. So while the whole area outlined in blue is the proposed site, the buildable area will be a little bit smaller, but this area will be usable for parking or amenity space. So, and then, oh, the additional items are some stormwater management happens right here, which is why we can't have any build on it. The city is looking at maybe just extending this sewer, the storm line all the way through to here. So that's still a discussion and pending kind of need. So that'll come, details will come to be determined. And then I think just a really great opportunity is we're really excited to see this project. It's the first purpose-built market rental in downtown that's on city-owned land. Through our housing needs report, through the assessment and the strategy, this is a way for the city to say, yes, we've identified that we need all this housing. And while we need all types of housing, this market rental is still part of that continuum. So we're really excited to see this come forward and see what we can do with the site.
Beautiful. Santana, thank you. That was a really excellent, comprehensive presentation, zooming in from the big picture right to the site. So thank you for that. I want to turn it over to the group now to ask any questions. If you're shy and you don't want to turn your camera on or unmute, you can put your questions in the chat. We want to make sure that we get everything answered here so that people can leave today's session and go away and put together some good proposals for the site.
Hi, Lisa. It's Steve Dunton. I'm a licensed residential builder in the province. I have sites all over the province. I have sites in Cranbrook. But for Santana, that area down first has some surcharge problems in the sewer. Has that sort of been addressed, or?
Hi, Steve. Yes, yeah, that those have been accounted for in this project, which is why that's why the capacity or the density limit is that 30 units.
So I'm stuck in traffic on Highway 101 and have been for 3 hours. So which is Sunshine Coast, and there's no sunshine. But here I am. So Lisa, can we do more than just this in Cranbrook? Because I have in front of Raymond right now an application for 71 very small bedroom, 1 bedrooms, and another site. Are you at capacity with this one item, or are you working a different part than the other part of BC Builds?
Yeah, so I think what you're working with on Raymond is a private stream financing only deal.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is looking for anyone can build it. All of our buildings so far have been built by the private sector, and then a nonprofit owner operator. So, yeah.
So I do have that opportunity on my site. I have a site that they've been kind enough to give me 331 unit zoning on it, and I have adequate sewer in that. So would you look at another one on a private basis, the 71 units small, or is this it for now?
This is an information session about this particular property. If you want to have a meeting about other properties, send me an email or send Raymond an email. I think that's the best answer. We have $2 billion in financing to lend, so we're not that constrained. But I want to just make sure that we focus questions here that are going to be most useful to everyone submitting proposals.
Right. So I am a builder, and we will be building in Cranbrook shortly. So if someone needs a partner on that.
Perfect. What's your company name?
Westcore.
Westcore. Okay, great. So if a nonprofit's looking for a partner, Westcore is there. All right, other questions?
Hey there, my name's Jeremy. I'm a licensed builder out of Kimberley, and I have never been to a session like this before. I've done some commercial builds, mostly residential and mostly in the high-end and kind of custom world. But I'm interested in the idea of, in our community here, the opportunity to create middle income housing, and, feel rather ill-equipped to be able to put a proposal together for this. But where would you recommend somebody like myself might start in order to get familiar with the idea of even putting a proposal in?
Have you had a chance to read through the property opportunity notice?
Yeah, I've looked at it kind of high level. Just wondering if there's do you offer kind of like a question and answer period, like for a one-on-one proposal, or is there sort of any like coaching in the terms of actually being able to make it through a proposal from start to finish, or are we kind of looking at that right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. That's really what this session is. So please ask any questions that you have. And if you don't know the answer, there are probably at least a few other people on the call who don't know the answer either. In other words, all questions are good questions. And then, after today's session wraps up, we are happy to answer. We don't do one-on-one coaching because it has to be a fair process that everyone has access to the same information. But we are very willing and happy to take any questions that you might have for ourselves, for the city of Cranbrook, and we'll answer your questions and then post them to the page so that everyone has access to the answers and the questions. So that's kind of how this process works. There's a lot of back and forth between now and the time the proposals are due. Today's kind of the kickoff.
Sure. Do you have any examples available of previous applications for something like this, or would that be, even just a rough example of something that you guys could throw together to send out to people, or is that too much to ask?
It's a good question. Let me think about it, because all of the proposals that have come forward are from private sector builders who may not want to, share their numbers or their information. But yeah, Ali, let's take that away. I think that's a great suggestion. Is there a successful proponent that would be willing to kind of be open book and share their submission? I think that's a great idea. So we'll ask, and if the answer is yes, then we'll make sure that it's added up to the property opportunity notice and flagged for all of you.
Sure, even if it was anonymous, or maybe a conglomeration of a bunch of different applications put together into one or something like that, it would be really helpful, I think, to just see, a physical example of something for myself anyways.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What we're looking for is not development permit ready drawings, because that's a bit of a stretch, but we're looking for um obviously projects that meet the zoning, projects that meet the development permit guidelines, projects that are financially viable based on BC Build's model, projects where there's a credible, reputable developer who has experience partnering with a nonprofit owner operator who's going to own and operate the building. The successful proponent, the group together, the developer and owner operator, need to put forward, we're here, BC Builds is here as the funder and financer, and we also steward the process. So maybe I'll just talk about the process, and that might help answer some questions for yourselves or others. So after we select a successful proponent, the city of Cranbrook, BC Builds, and the nonprofit owner operator would sign what we call a conditional land contribution letter, where everyone says, we're all going to do our part. City's going to accelerate the approvals process. BC Builds is going to accelerate the financial approvals process. Developer is going to design a building. Nonprofit's going to commit to operating it, and we're all going to work together in the next year to get this project under construction. Once that conditional land contribution letter is signed, BC Builds convenes a project acceleration committee meeting where we meet. We get everyone together that's involved in the project, meet on a tri-weekly basis, and accelerate the projects through to construction. So the successful proponent's not left on their own to figure out what to do or how this works, where we convene a team that drives things forward. So for what you want to emphasize in your proposals are your experience, a financially viable and financially sustainable proposal, both capital and operating, that doesn't require an ongoing operating subsidy, a development that fits with the city's expectation. So those are some of the things. But I think, Jeremy, your question about would someone put their proposal up as an example? I can think of a few folks who might say yes to that. So we'll take that away. And one thing that I'll say before I stop talking and go to other questions is everybody who signed up for this info session today will receive an email when the property opportunity notice is updated. So if somebody on this call or somebody who's not on this call but is interested in submitting a proposal, they'll ask a question, we'll get the question, we'll get the answer, we'll put it up on the website, and then everyone will get notified, hey, there's new information about this project. If you, and I'll actually say this for people who aren't here and who are going to watch this later, because they might want those emails too. If they sign up for BC Build's e-bulletin, they'll also get a notification when updates are made. Other questions?
Yeah, hi. Actually, we are the civil engineer and we work with, builders and developers. And for this, the one builder approach us to form a partnership. So we are thinking to just open a new company just as a partnership for this project. So I want to know, is there any point for like past experience of the company? Because it will be a new company, but we have experience separately as an engineer and as a builders and developers.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Just make sure that you highlight your collective experience. It doesn't, to us, if you're forming a partnership to put forward a proposal, that's fine. But we do want to see your independent and individual experience previous to that. So that's fine. Yeah, just make sure that you highlight your experience and the experience of your partners when you put your submission in.
Okay. And the non-profit organization for operation, they should have previous experience, or we can have anybody, willing to operate.
They either need to have experience owning and operating a building, or, and this is laid out in the property opportunity notice, or partner with an entity that does. So if it's a new nonprofit, and they have never operated a building before, you might want to tell us in the proposal who is going to be the third party management firm or organization to help build the capacity over the first 5 years of operation. So on page 10 at the top of the property opportunity notice, it lays that out. So it can be a new nonprofit, but if it's going to be a new nonprofit, they need to demonstrate, or you need to demonstrate in the submission who they will partner with, or third party property management firm to operate the building and build that organization's capacity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Again, if you don't feel like asking your question into the room, will the recording be emailed out as well, or just put onto the BC Build's website? I think, Ali, we can probably email out the recording, hey?
Yes, it will be should be uploaded by the end of this week, and it'll be emailed to everyone who is registered for this session.
And I noticed Mike put in the chat, my microphone is not functioning for those on the call, the Colonel Baker House. And I think Mike was going to say something about that. Mike, if you've got a question, also feel free to put it in the chat. Happy to answer. Questions from others. And again, many people here are, almost everyone, I'm not sure if there's anyone on the call that we've worked with before or that I know. So I just don't be shy, just ask your questions, because this is your time and we want to help you put together good proposals. Yeah, Wambui, go ahead.
Just wondering what kind of help BC Builds can provide to a nonprofit. Just because I know the costs that go to even creating that proposal, so to speak. And if you don't have seed funding, you're a nonprofit. So, I mean, because I know you said that quite a few of your applications would be private. So I'm just wondering if you have that additional support, or how, because obviously you cannot access seed funding until you have been selected. But then you need to put this proposal together and kind of get the architects and all that. Or do you find that people are okay to do it on a contingency basis, and if the project doesn't go through, then it doesn't go through? But I'm just wondering about that. How do you support your nonprofit builders, really, to get to that level?
Yeah, so there in advance of the proposals being submitted, there is no seed funding available. Generally, the nonprofit partners that we've seen be successful have partnered with their developer builder. So I don't, I'm really curious to learn more about your entity, because I didn't know that there were actually any nonprofit builders, like actual builders that are nonprofit that are building homes. So that, you know, that's maybe put your name in the chat, or your nonprofits.
Yeah, I'd love
Maybe
to
I'll
chat
check.
with you on that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so there's, we do encourage partnerships, and somebody's got to put in some money up front to get some sketches done, develop a proposal that's going to be credible and viable. So there can be a bit of cost to that. Other questions that people have about this opportunity: how to submit a good proposal, anything about financing, anything about the zoning, anything about nonprofit partnerships with developers. Okay, Stephanie's put in the chat, hello everyone, I represent a construction company that specializes in modular installation. If there are any developers who would be interested in partnering, my contact email is steph@tasu.ca. I'm only reading that out because the chat won't be available to people who watch this info session afterwards. So thanks, Stephanie, for that. Hopefully there'll be some partners coming your way.
Hey, sorry, it's me again. Just curious if you could provide any idea around average cost per square foot for a project like what you're proposing here, even some rough parameters for that.
Santana, do you have a sense of local per square foot construction costs?
It's varying a lot right now. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of medium density builds to compare to. So that's something we are working on, getting an update of like a local context. But I'll confirm with our building department as well on what that looks like.
Okay, that's great. And then
Can I help you?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Cranbrook right now is it's about $30 to $35 less a square foot than, say, the Fraser Valley right now. And whether it holds that, I don't know. And whether the lumber prices hold at the low rate they are right now, I don't know. So, I mean, that's a variable of maybe another $10. But if you don't have underground parking, you're probably anywhere cost, no profit, somewhere around 285 to 295. With underground parking, you get up to the 335 with one underground, and it goes up to about 360 or so with two underground. So depending on parking on this, so that's what my numbers are coming in at, and I don't build a cheap product, so others may be much better at getting a lower number than that. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Steve. Santana, actually, that brought to mind a question that I had from your presentation. That area that was kind of hashed out at the back of the site, could that be used for surface parking? And is the city okay with not having any underground parking?
Yes, yeah. So that's the intent or the goal. Hope is the word I was looking for. Is that area would be used for the parking.
Okay, great. So just for everyone on here.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
I'm just looking for density of how much parking you're actually looking for, because this sort of housing should be about 0.5, and I think you're at 2 right now in Cranbrook.
Steve, this housing is market rental. In Cranbrook, we are still a very car-centric city. While it is close to services and amenities, we still see in Cranbrook, somebody still needs at least a vehicle, is what we're seeing. So this zoning site specific. So instead of the general blanket 2 per unit, regardless of the unit configuration, in this development, we've outlined parking requirements based on unit size or unit configuration. So if it's a 1-bedroom unit, it requires 1 stall, type thing. So more details are in the zoning section, and in the housing opportunity notice.
Thanks for that.
Perfect. Yeah, great. Okay, so just for the record, underground parking is not required for this site, and that site, the hashed out area can be used to accommodate parking. That's good from BC Build's point of view, because it does bring down the construction costs, as Steve noted. So yeah, we'll take Steve as the record for now, but Santana, if you have any more detailed information from your building department about what kind of per square foot cost they're seeing for multi-unit residential, just send those over to Ali. And Jeremy, great question. We can update the property opportunity notice. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go to a question in the chat, and then Nadeem, I'll come back to you. What scale of financial contribution from a non-profit has historically been needed to maximize those points? To be very honest, we've seen, yeah, exactly, as much as possible. We've seen very, very little contribution from nonprofits, in terms of actual cash equity into projects. So that's why we gave it such low points. If there's anything that you can squeeze out of your already tight budgets, that does help. But BC Builds is premised on some equity coming into the project, and in this case, the equity is the land. So we take the land contribution from the city of Cranbrook as equity. But if there's any additional funding that can come in, that's great. But it's not very heavily weighted, as you can see. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I would, again, any additional cash is helpful, and I would focus on building a really strong proposal in those other sections that are worth more points. Nadeem, I think that was you that unmuted and was going to ask. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So this will require rezoning, or the current zoning, or no?
It is the city of Cranbrook has zoned the site, and they'll be doing the subdivision. So that's why we use this housing development opportunities platform. We take away the risk, and we take away the time by working with the city in advance to set the table for what they'd like to see there.
Okay, so it will go to development permit and then building permit.
Correct.
And my understanding is that there won't be any off-site improvement except the stormwater management, like sidewalk or any curb or something during the development permit.
There'll be requirements for the road, that's been outlined in there, and then because it will be the access, and then there's some other ones in the opportunity notice. So pull it up, but the engineer outlines. He unfortunately could not be on the call with me today.
Lisa, can I add one more thing? And that is, you're in the Columbia Basin Trust area, and for the not-for-profits, they give a lot of money away every year, and so do some of the major employers in the area. And there is probably a source separate once this is granted. There is probably a source of more funds available.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, potentially through the Columbia Basin Trust. They fund low to moderate income housing, so not necessarily BC Builds, but there may be other opportunities. Steve, I see your hand. Before I come to you, I just want to read out, so I'm being fair to everyone who put stuff in the chat. Wambui put her information, community@inukacommunity.ca. So if anyone's interested in partnering with that nonprofit developer. And then Jared's written, hello all, I represent a developer builder. It would be great to partner with a society to create the most out of this opportunity. My contact is jarratt.dixon@scuka.ca. Happy to connect. Thanks, Jason. We're really glad that Jarrett, we're really glad that people are using the chat for this purpose, because that's been one of the things how do these groups come together? And that's one of the reasons we have these info sessions. So if anyone else wants to share in the chat, feel free to cut and paste each other's email addresses and take the stuff out of there. But I'm just reading them out for people who see this afterwards who might not be here today. Steve, go ahead.
I actually didn't put another Steve.
Sorry,
go
Steve.
ahead.
Yeah, Steve Thompson.
Sorry. It's two quick questions. One is, I see in the height here, the lesser of 18 meters or 4 stories. But if we're wanting commercial on the grade, can we go to 5 stories on this site and still stay within the 18 meters? And then the second question again is, so there's only so much area is practically buildable because of the constraints of services and that. Does the city have the dimensions of what they see as the practically buildable area on this site to be?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, the buildable site is approximately, let me pull those numbers out. I used to have it off the top of my head. But regarding the height regulations, if you kind of came up with a different design and it was within the 4 stories or the 18 meters, it would be, it's the reason we wrote it that way so that it could be flexible. Also, would be excited to see something come to this site and there wouldn't be willing to entertain like a variance, a minor variance or something like that to make something work based on we understand it's, like I said, there's no easy land anymore. So it kind of poses its own complications. So willing to be flexible that way. I'm just going to get those numbers for you on the developable area.
Okay, and while you're doing that, just a couple more things from the chat here. Nadeem has put his email in. We're looking for a nonprofit organization. Email address is nadeem@mjlengineering.com. So Nadeem at mjlengineering.com. And then Nancy has put in that they are have a potential development partner already, but leaving my email in case anyone wants to reach out. And that's executive director at ccssebc.com. So thanks, Nancy, for that. Oh, perfect. And Ali has offered to gather all the contacts being shared and send them in an email after this session. Thanks for doing that, Ali. I just want to make sure that we're fair to people who might not be able to come today, but who will want these contacts anyway. Santana, let us know when you have that information about buildable area, and I will go back to the group here to see if there are any other questions. Okay, maybe while Santana's looking for that information, and since we're kind of coming up to the end of the session here, I'll outline the next steps for everyone. So everyone's clear about what happens from here. So this info session will be posted to the page on the BC Builds website for the Cranbrook project. So you'll be able to get it and watch again or go back to the parts that you might not have recorded or captured. Ali will also send an email with the link to this info session. As I noted earlier, we are very happy to support. We can't do it in one-on-one proposal coaching, but very happy to support the submission of proposals for this site. The way to get information from us and from Cranbrook is to make sure you direct all your correspondence to info@bcbuildshomes.ca. That address is in the property opportunity notice. Oh, sorry, just have to mute someone there. And what we will do is we'll get your question, we'll get your answer, we'll post the answer along with your question, and then we'll make sure that everyone here who's working on proposals sees that question and answer. We do a really clear table on the site that says there's been an update. It was made on February 4th. It's on page 17. So we try and make it really easy for you to follow along all the updates to the submissions. Yeah, so that's what will happen next. Sean is asking, I see there is an interested party looking to sell a neighboring property. Will that increase the 30 unit max based on the servicing capacity? That's not part of this proposal. BC Builds is meant to work with existing zone sites and get them built quickly. So doing an acquisition and a assembly, et cetera, maybe possible in the future, or let's, get the successful proponent through the door. But please don't build that assumption or build that property into your proposals that you're putting forward. Santana, do you have the buildable?
I don't have the hard number because my GIS isn't loading, but it's just around 3,000 square meters. So I will update, I'll send you guys the number so I can update the proposal.
Okay,
or the
perfect.
notes.
Yeah, we want to get that really crisped up so we know exactly the buildable area. So we will put that information in an update to the property opportunity notice.
We are waiting for the surveyor to get back with us with the sketch plan as well. So once that comes in, we'll have some harder numbers.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll, just like you'll be asking us questions over the next months as you're submitting your proposals, we will be updating information. We will promise not to put anything critical at the last minute, and hopefully you'll air all of your questions over the next month or month and a half, and then get your proposals crafted after that. So proposals are due 11:45 p.m. on April the 21st. We're not allowed to accept any late proposals. So please have your submissions in by that time. Any questions, info@bcbuildshomes.ca is the place to get answers between now and April 21st. I will ask one more time before we hang off. Is there a deadline for when the questions can be submitted up to? No, we probably should have put a deadline in, but we want to be as responsive as possible right to the last minute. So we do encourage you, just for your own sake and the sake of others building proposals, to ask questions as soon as you can. But realistically, there may be something that comes up last minute. We've seen that in other opportunities where the questions need to be answered right near the deadline, and we're happy to do that. We want to make sure that everyone has the information they need to put in good proposals. All right, I don't see any other hands or anyone else asking questions in the chat. I really want to thank everyone for your time this afternoon, for spending what is a snowy day all the way across the province, even here in Victoria, which is usually not snowy, spending this time with us. Steve Dunton, we hope you get out of traffic soon. I don't know how that's, yeah. 3 hours on one road is a long time. Yeah, and thanks everyone for your time today, for your interest in BC Builds, and we look forward to receiving your proposals and supporting you along the way as we can in developing them. And anything we said we would do today as a follow-up, we will do that. So just look to the site and look to your emails for that.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.